Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you had a great start to your week. It's a wonderful day here in central Indiana. Beautiful fall-like weather. So season's winding down, which is always sad, but oftentimes gives a chance to kind of regroup and cross off all those projects that you've been putting off all season, whether they're projects at home or projects within your race team that you're like, we'll get to that this off season. I have a couple of those. So hope you guys are getting some last bit of racing in wherever you're from. So tonight's an exciting night. We dive into a 6-week series, shock building. So we're going to be taking shocks apart, talking about rebuilding them, tuning them, things to look at, different theories. We kind of cover the gamut. But just know it's hard to cram 25 years I've been building shocks, so 25 years worth of trials, tribulation, knowledge into 6, 8 to 10 minute segments. So, but hope you guys tune in through the whole thing. I think it's going to be really good, and if viewership is good and interaction's good and people really like it, we'll progress into a more advanced shock building segment, and we've even considered doing a shock building class here this winter, so let us know if you're interested in that. But without further ado, first episode, basics of shock rebuilding, coming at you. All right, we're here in our shock trailer, and we're going to walk through kind of the basics on shock rebuilding. This is going to be the first segment in what's going to carry us through almost the end of the year, and we're just going to go over some general shock stuff. So the first thing we would do when a shock comes in for service is give it a good visual inspection. So we're going to inspect the spherical bearings, make sure they're not sloppy, that the clips are in place on both ends. Okay, a good visual on the body. This is a monotube shock, so if there's a dent in the body, that could be problematic. I'll always give it a kind of a full compression, and the reason I'm doing this is to see if there's a big bend in the shaft. Then I'll spin it as it comes out, and if it catches anywhere, that's a good indication that the shaft is bent. So this is just a test shock we have laying around that we test different parts in we're making, but it all looks to be in good shape. Okay, so the next thing I do is I put it on the shock dyno. And what we're going to do is basically run a validation. So when we put it on the shock dyno, we're looking for anything that is different from the last time it was here. And that's going to give us an indication as we go through to service this, if it's way off on compression, or if all of a sudden there's a bunch of hysteresis. It'll give us an idea of different areas to check on the shock when we tear it apart. So next step would be to put it on the shock dyno. So everything looked good on the dyno. So now we're going to get this thing taken apart and show you what we inspect, what we replace every time, and all of that stuff. So you'll need a rod guide or shaft bearing is what this piece is commonly referred to depending on the manufacturer. We call it a rod guide. You'll need a tool to get that off. Every manufacturer is a little bit different. Also, a drip cup is handy. We have a video where we're going to go through all the proper tools here at the end. And the vise here. Now, as you're looking at it here, the bottom shims are compression, the top shims are rebound, and this is the jet, because this is an adjustable shock. So this jet is either going to be for compression or rebound, or what we call an open jet, which will adjust compression and rebound at the same time. So this is a rebound jet. I just know by looking at our jets, we'll break that free. And then I take everything off as a unit to lay out my shims. So piston nut, and then I just lay them out in order. You can see this shim has some discolorization and rust. So is this one. This shock's probably been together for quite a while. So we will Lay out then the piston, and then all of the shims in order. So I lay the shims out in order. So this is a ring shim on both sides. In a couple weeks, you're going to learn about all the different shim stack techniques, but for now we're just going to show you how we would rebuild these. So I got the shims all laid out. I'm going to inspect each one, okay, to make sure nothing's bent. All right, and I took them off in the exact orientation they came off. So as it came off, because we're going to flip these. If we're reusing the shim, we're always going to flip it. But I'm going to replace these ones that are discolored. Oftentimes that bent shim will show up when we dyno it because the shock will be softer, but just giving them all a good visual and identifying which ones we need to replace. We got a couple here on the rebound side that we want to replace for sure. And I'm making sure to put these back down in the same orientation as what they come off. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is get the rod guide off. I'm going to break that guy free. Sometimes your rod end can be stuck on the shaft a little bit, like this one really is. Break that guy free. Doesn't matter what orientation the adjuster's in when you take it off on our shock. Other brands may vary. It just matters when you put it back on. Get this jam nut off. And we're going to slide that shaft bearing off. Okay. So on the shaft bearing, this is our RS23 and 25 style with the inner gland. So you can actually pull that snap ring out and take this whole gland out, which makes it a lot easier to change the seals. But we really want to look down in here to make sure that this is really round and it's not oblonged. And the reason we do that is even though we check the shaft and we know the shaft is straight, if somebody else has replaced the shaft in it and this got oblonged and they didn't replace the insert or the whole rod guide, depending on the style of shock, the shock's going to have more slop than it should, and it's also probably going to leak over time. So whenever we bend a shaft, we always want to make sure we inspect that and replace it. So oftentimes when shocks come back, we don't know exactly what they've been through trauma wise. If you're rebuilding your own stuff, you kind of have a better idea, but we want to inspect that. So every time we're going to replace all these seals when we take it apart, and then we're going to go through and we're going to replace any shims that look bad. Kind of the last step is checking the shock oil. So as you can see, the shock oil itself is dirty, all right? And how does that happen in a sealed shock? Well, every manufacturer is a little bit different, but we're all very mindful of seal drag and how that affects the performance of the shock. So most people are running, your high-end shocks are running a little bit lighter seals, and we race in dirt, right? And so little bitty dirt pieces can get ingested in the shock, especially if you race in sandy environments. And that's why we recommend 20-25 races of normal racing, and these should be gone through. So we'll go through this. We'll thoroughly clean this shock. We'll take it apart, wash the pieces in warm water and simple green. Then we'll refill it with fresh oil, and we're going to replace these shims and start to put it back together. All right, so we've replaced the seals. We're going to want to put some grease in here, and then we have these, we call them bullets, that slide over the threads, and that's going to ensure that we don't tear any seals when we put that back on. All right, so we sell those for our shafts. Then we'll put the jam nut back on. And we'll make sure that We have this at full soft when we put it back on. Screw it on. Now, when we go to put the shims on, we're going to go in reverse order. Okay, so I'm going to pick these back up in the same order. So that's the way they were on. We're gonna flip each one as we put it on. So the shim, if it's been opening in one direction, it will now open in another direction. That's just sometimes you can flip a shim once or so through its life without having to replace them. These higher end shims are a little more expensive, so just replacing all the shims could be 30-40 bucks a shock. So that's why I'm flipping those. Just flipping them, they'll be good as new for another round here. Okay, I'll get that snug. And then we torque that to 24 foot-pounds. There we go. Now, when we go to put this in, we'll want to get this dirty oil out, and we like to dip the piston in the oil, try to get some oil in the ports of the piston, and that'll help with the bleeding process. So I'm going to clean that out, put fresh oil in it to dunk my piston in and get oil down in those ports, try to get some oil in there, and then we'll put this in the shock. So we got our piston and some oil. Now be careful that these bleed holes, if you've got a compression jet in there, it'll shoot oil out of those when you're compressing it, and that will make a mess. Now what we're going to do is just try to hold the shaft up, and I'll tap it with my hand. What we're trying to do is just snap the shims open and get any air that's trapped in there out. This is kind of traditional, conventional way to do it. We're here in the shock trailer. I don't have a bleed machine in here. In an episode coming up, we're going to talk about all different ways to bleed a shock. We prefer to do it with a bleed machine, a vac fill machine, but sometimes when you're on the road, you got to do it this way. And so you'll tighten your rod guide up. Tight. And we have a bleed screw. Different shocks are different, but we have a bleed screw, and this will purge out any excess fluid and air. And we get that back tight. Now we're ready to go on the dyno. So a shock dyno is a necessity. If you want to tune your shocks, monitor your shocks, if you're going to race at the highest level, a shock dyno's paramount nowadays. We really like the CTW dynos. We love the support that they offer. We love that their software is ever evolving and becoming more and more technologically advanced. This is an older Rohrig machine that we had. Maybe the second dyno that we ever bought. But it operates on CTW software. CTW's been through it, calibrated it. So the hardware of the machine still works fine, but we are operating on CTW software. So we've checked this shock, made sure it was back within parameters, and now it's good to go. Kind of the last step for us before we'd send it out the door is to double check the gas pressure. We have all of our regulators set to a specific pressure, and when we refill the shock, I probably skipped that process when we were going through it, but when we refill the shock, we check them all with a set pressure, and then we set a final pressure before it goes to the customer. So that is kind of the quick and dirty steps on rebuilding a sprint car micro quarter midget dirt midget shock. Hope you guys enjoyed that. That was just the first of 6. We got some great episodes coming. We have them all planned out. They're posted, I think, on our Instagram and our Facebook. I think Jack posted last week. So it's going to cover the next 6 weeks. And if you watch this long, please ring the bell for notifications. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That helps us tremendously as we're trying to grow this and bring you guys more useful content. So thanks for watching. Have a great week.